Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Genius Podcast. I'm your humble and most gracious host, Joshua the Genius, and I'm along here with my beautiful co-host, Sarah and Mitchell. And today's topic is going to be a little bit of news and a little bit about app development or the app development culture, right? And so we're going to be talking about what's going on between Apple and Google versus South Korea and the KCC. And the KCC stands for
And the rest of the world, because we have some where it's trickling into the European Union as well.
Yeah, what we're going to be talking about is kind of the first or how Korea is setting a precedent with how some of these purchases are going or purchase payment policies are occurring through these app stores. And to get back to, just so you guys know, the KCC is the Korean Communications Commission. Okay, so what's going on right now is a conversation and some litigation around the App Store payment processing channels and who gets to collect these revenues through these paid applications or in-app purchases or subscriptions. So Apple and Google, they basically own the biggest app stores in the market. Apple has the App Store for the iOS and macOS platform, while Google has the Google Play Store for the majority of Android-based devices. And so those two app store markets and app stores, with them being the forerunners basically in the world, they are the ones that are pretty much setting the foundation for how app stores are supposed to operate, right? And so for the inception, the App Store came out in 2008, and since that inception, Apple has been taking a 30% commission from every purchase or every transaction that has occurred through the App Store. And so as a developer, when you sign up to be an App Store publisher or be an app developer, you have to sign up and register yourself in Apple's database, and that costs $99 a year. And that $99 allows you all of the access to all of Apple's software, the current software and unreleased software, as well as tools to help you develop applications, and also access to all Apple's documentation. So for $99 a year, you get the access to all those tools as well as the ability to publish your app to the App Store. So if you don't want to publish, you can be a non-paid developer, still get access to some of those tools and work on applications. But when you're ready to distribute to the App Store, you have to be a paid-for member. So that $99 a year covers you for those tools and the publishing. The 70-30 split comes in where if you are selling your application, if you are doing a kind of like freemium model where you give it away for free and then, it's kind of like a free trial.
Upgrade to 99 cents a month or
It's kind of to give
ad free for $2.99.
The freemium model was to get to give you a little bit of taste of the application so you can get comfortable with it to see if you really want to pay for it. So there's the paid, so you can pay for the application up front, the freemium model, or the subscription-based model. The subscription-based model is that, hey, you can download the application, but in order to use this on a monthly basis or weekly basis, you need to pay for it on that monthly or weekly basis. And so since 2008, app developers have been figuring out what is the best monetization strategy. What's the best way for me to go about selling my application to these end users? At the very beginning, the freemium model was kind of the more coveted monetization style because it allows your user to still download the application, but still allows you to monetize from that application. And so, as app developers, the only way that you make money is from people downloading and paying for your application. Having a end user pay for the application before they use it has been difficult for app developers over the years because it's difficult for the majority of users to pay even $1 for an application, right?
Yeah. People really be like, do I really want to pay 99 cents?
99 cents. People will utilize enterprise applications but be upset that they cost $1, $2, $3. Right? But the developer has put years into making some of these applications. And the only way that they get paid is by selling it through the App Store and hoping that end users see the value in their application and want to pay for it. Apple's side on this is basically, we're going to showcase your application in our App Store. We're going to showcase your application. We're going to market your application. Maybe you might be app of the day, or you might be in the top 5, or you might show up in certain keyword searches. They do the marketing and they also do the publication, right? So once you're done with your application, you submit it to Apple, and then Apple takes your bundle and places it in all the necessary places so that anybody using their App Store can download your application. So they take all of that responsibility. The 70-30 split comes in for Apple providing that value to the developer, right? As a developer, I don't have to go market my own app and put it in the App Store myself. Apple does that for me. I don't have to do the keyword metrics. I don't have to do it. I may have to submit my keywords, but I don't have to put them into the actual server, into the database. Apple handles all of that. And so since 2008, Apple has been taking 30% of every dollar that has come through the App Store.
Is that what it always has been?
That's what it's all, and the 30% is pretty much an industry standard. It's pretty much an industry standard. Most gaming companies or most digital application stores, there is some type of revenue share or revenue split between the publisher, which in this case would be Apple or Google, and the developer or the independent developer submitting their application. There's always been some type of split because there's an understanding that the publisher needs to do things to market your application and host the application. Keep your application current, make sure that it's functioning, make sure everything is working in your profile page. They do all of that maintenance behind the scenes to make sure that your application looks the best to the end user, which would give you the best shot at selling your application. And so there was a tweet that came out a couple months ago, and it was talking about an old email. I believe this was from 2011. From 2011, it was from Phil Schiller, one of the senior executives at Apple, and he sent an email over to Steve. He was basically asking
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs, basically asking, how long do we think this 70-30 split is going to last?
Before people get riled up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. At the very beginning in 2008, 2009, right, we were very enamored by the App Store. It was this
so
new
and
it was
shiny.
new and shiny. It was this great place. Steve, he marketed the App Store like it was the best place. If you were a developer, the App Store was the best place for you to get your product. And the only thing that you had to do was to pay $99 to be a developer, to be a registered developer, and then agree to the revenue share that I'll take for every $1, I get 70 cents. And Apple gets 30 cents. And as long as I'm okay with that, right, I'll be able to submit any applications I want to the App Store and have the potential of selling them to the over, I think it's 1 billion devices now in the world that could potentially get, that my app could potentially get onto. Sir?
So before the era of the App Store where you could download and purchase software and, just digitally,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to going to the store, buying a CD,
Mm-hmm.
and having to load the software onto your device.
Mm-hmm.
So in the old model, let's say you're going into a store to purchase like physical software,
Mm-hmm.
the business that you're buying it from would usually mark up the product
Yes.
that they're sourcing it from.
Yes.
So is it crazy to think that if we apply that same logic to the App Store, you would think that the developer would calculate the markup or the Apple tax, that 30% into the cost of the app?
Mm-hmm. So that's
Is that
a good.
a weird way to think
No.
about that?
I know exactly what you're saying. So let me address it this way. So in that scenario, somebody has to get paid for
Correct.
putting. Yeah, somebody has
That's
to
what I'm
get
saying.
paid.
Both parties are gonna walk away with some
Yes.
kind of
Yes. If I am going, let's say, a Walmart, right,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say I'm gonna bring this into music, right? Bring us into music. If I am selling CDs, and say I have 1,000 CDs, right? Each one is $10. If I go and sell those to Walmart, Walmart may buy them for $10, $11 maybe, but to the end user, they may sell that CD for $20 because they need a profit margin for the value that they add to the CD. The value that they're adding is placing it in the CD slot in their establishment that they already have a target audience. They already have people that come into the store. So it gets more eyes and the more chances for your CD to be sold.
Market.
Exactly. That curation, that's a great word. Curation of the product is handled by Walmart, right? So in the scenario of selling a CD, the revenue split happens after the purchase, right? The publisher buys it from me, and then they mark it up and then sell it to the end user, and that's where they see their profit. That perspective and that concept doesn't translate the same over to digital goods, right? Because if I am a developer, Apple is not buying my application.
There are no physical.
It's no physical. They are just reproducing copies and making sure that these replicas
distribution.
yes, they're facilitating the distribution of these copies, and they're making sure that these copies are the same exact copy of my application to make sure that it gets onto the devices in the best way possible, right? And for adding that value, Apple takes the 30%. Now, do I agree with the 30%?
As a developer, because
yes,
you're a developer.
Yes. So,
but to be fair, they do have the small business.
Yes, and we'll get to that in just a minute.
Corner of that, you know.
So,
I think that's closer to 15%. Is that end of the spectrum?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll talk more in depth in that in just a moment. But as a developer, when Apple first came out with these policies, they were polarizing, right? Parts of the community said that, hey, this is 30% for all that Apple gives to us, and the value that they're adding to our product is worth it. Then the other side was, well, there's probably 60 to 65% of and it might be more, of people that download apps that the majority of them are free, right? And
so that 30% never comes out.
That 30% never comes out, right? So you are a lot of developers use free applications to kind of market themselves or get an application in the market and to hook people to then get them hooked onto either their brand or company as an app developer, or to just as the app itself and build upon that in later iterations.
I've seen that with a lot of like game companies where like one will pop off and then they'll have like 5 other games that they'll push in ads through the one free game that everybody's on.
And so we were again very enamored by how the App Store ran out. It was new and shiny, so we just went with it. It was Apple. The iPhone at that time was the newest thing out there. Developers wanted to get their applications on iPhones, and if that's what we had to give up to do it, we did it, right? We were comfortable with doing it. Now, 10 years later, now we have South Korea, who is coming out saying, hey, Apple and Google, for the last 10 years, you have curated these app stores. You have made it possible for developers to put their applications into your app stores and to sell them. And for the last 10 years, you have been taking a 30% cut of every transaction that has occurred through your app stores. Our country is deciding that that is not lawful, that you have a monopoly on these app stores and you are abusing that monopoly. And so what South Korea...
Back to antitrust.
Back to our antitrust conversation, back to our conversation about Epic. Okay? Just before I get into
and
what...
Spotify even.
And Spotify, yes. Before I get into what Korea stated and their perspective on the matter, just want to reiterate our conversation about Epic. Okay? Epic, the Fortnite game was removed from the App Store because Epic allowed their users to purchase V-Bucks outside of the App Store, meaning that
Traditional like purchasing methods, yeah.
meaning that the user didn't have to go through Apple's payment system to purchase these V-Bucks. Epic gave them a link that sent them to an outside
Fortnite.com
website,
somewhere.
and they were able to purchase those V-Bucks at a discounted price, right? And Epic was able to retain all of that revenue share. Well, excuse me, of the revenue generated from that third party link. It's interesting that Epic did so because Epic also has a 30% cut. Epic and Unity together as a platform, they have a 30% cut with their developers. And Epic's gripe with Apple was, hey, we think that 30% is too much. For the amount of money that we're bringing through the App Store, you shouldn't be charging us 30% off of every dollar that we're making. It's not fair. But Epic has that policy within their own App Store. And with their own developers. So if you guys go back to the episode, Epic versus Apple, I disagree with how Epic approached the situation. They knowingly went against the guidelines and efforts to try to showcase Apple's monopoly. But in my opinion, I don't think that Apple has a monopoly on payment processing or purchase processing through the applications. Do I think that it might be a little high? Yes. Especially after 10 years, I think it is a little high. I think that 30% should be kicked down a little bit. But do I think that it's necessary? 1,000%.
Question. So Apple's taking 30%. What are they using this 30% for? Because I'm making an assumption that their argument is around security, because that's always their angle.
So there's the security, there's experience, security.
They
meaning,
are about continuity with their user experience. Yes. That's another one for them, yeah.
Security meaning that, hey, we're not going to allow these developers who, you can be a developer from anywhere in the world, right? And so if you put your application onto the App Store and you send somebody to an outside link, Apple can't, what's the word I'm looking for? They can't mitigate, they can't survey, they can't make sure that third party link is taking you to a credible site. So the security of the user,
fraud.
Yes.
Just don't know.
The security of the user is compromised. If you allow through the App Store, allow for the purchase of a digital good outside of the App Store, Apple can't watch that. Okay.
What if I do a hack to redirect all inquiries from that link to another link where I'm capturing user data? I could see that being a potential for hacking and fraud.
I didn't even think of that, but that's very, very possible. That's very, very possible. So security is one. Experience. So when you go through the in-app purchase process, it's very streamlined because as a developer, you have to set up your in-app purchases in a particular way, right? It has to be done almost perfect in order for it to work. So the experience of the user, it's just streamlined and seamless.
Yeah.
I want this digital good. It is this amount of money. I press one button, and it purchases right through the credit card that is attached to my Apple ID on file. So I know where the money is coming from and where the money is going. There's no confusion. There's no ambiguity. It's all right there, and it's streamlined. So the experience is compromised. So security and experience, and then the credibility of the App Store. Okay, the credibility. If people leave the App Store and go to third-party sites or third-party places to buy their digital goods for the apps on the App Store, that starts to decrease the amount of in-app purchase revenue for other developers who their only means of generating revenue is through in-app purchases, right? So if we start to see a lot of these developers, these bigger developers, right? So we're talking
those
about
are the ones that are running from that 30%.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's once you get over a certain benchmark of income that the 30% is instituted as opposed to the 15%. Because that's based on the size of
it's based
the
on the
business.
size, and it scales up and down. Yes.
Correct.
So the bigger companies are fighting against it because 30% of $1 million is different
They're
than
not
30%
even paying
of
the U.S.
$1,000.
government 30%.
Right. So they're trying to run from that. But when you look at smaller devs, right, and say 80% of the developer community is independent devs, either individuals or small companies that are building these applications. These aren't huge design firms, huge application programming firms. That they probably make up 5% of the market, right, or the developer community. So when we talk about decreasing the amount of transactions through the in-app purchase system, okay, it starts to decrease the credibility of the App Store, which means less money for independent developers. And that's what the App Store is built for. It's built so that independent developers can make money and have a chance to fight against and be on same playing ground as the big houses, as the big corporations. It helps level the playing field. But if the big corporations allow for or lobby and get the ability to continuously circumvent all of their purchases outside of the App Store, that is going to hurt the independent developer community, which is why, again, I don't think that the commission is wrong. I think that it might be a little much. I think it should be decreased, but I think it should still be there because Apple provides value to your application.
Yeah, they're not just a passive partner.
In more ways than one. So getting back to South Korea, okay? South Korea's stance, like I said, they believe that this 30% is unlawful. They also believe that the binding of their developers, making the developers in Korea only providing them one way to process payment for digital goods. South Korea believes that is unlawful. That Apple and Google should allow their developers in their country other ways of generating revenue outside of the in-app purchase system. All right, and so now there is legislation and a law that is being put into effect. I want to say it's being signed next week. And that law is basically telling Apple and Google that for our developers in South Korea, this only applies to the citizens of South Korea. Okay, and there's over 500,000 developers in South Korea right now, over 500,000. All right, and so those 500,000 developers, South Korea is saying you can't bind them to one payment processor, which is currently right now is the in-app purchase processing payment channel. You can't bind them to that. You need to allow them more options to process payment outside of the App Store or outside of the in-app purchase system. Another is they also want for Apple to be more transparent with how their guidelines stipulate what can and cannot be in the App Store, and also more clarity around why a app is being removed from the App Store based on certain guidelines.
Okay.
As a developer, it's been very difficult submitting applications, especially in the early years. I remember I had to use some corporate relationships to speak to some people on the app review team because there were times where app review processes took 3 to 4 weeks.
As opposed to something that should take, 72 hours?
So should is a strong word, and the
It
reason
depends
why,
on the
yeah, it
the
depends
amount of
on.
inquiries at one given time.
Yes, so
Okay.
it depends on the workload that the app review team has at any given time, and it depends on the complexity of your application, right? If you're building a calculator app, you're not really using too many development packages. You're not using too many technologies to put into the application. You're not sourcing data and storing
Oh, so
data.
they're
So
checking
there's
for
not.
stability of the
Yes,
application as
yes,
well.
yes.
This is not just if it's uh, content wise, if it's appropriate. It's a deeper review than that.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They go through a very rigorous review process before they allow your application into the App Store for it to be sold.
That's curated for you.
And there's been, there's positive and negatives behind that. There's the positive conversation around, all right, making sure that it's secure, making sure that all the necessary content that I need to have is in there, making sure the technologies and the code that I'm using is stable and that it's working to where when my customers get it, it's not crashing, it doesn't fail, which would decrease the amount of sales that I'm able to get out if when people download it's all buggy. So it goes through that review process with Apple to make sure that it's at the best optimal place that it can be before it goes into the store. That's the positive side.
Quality control.
That negative side is, well, I have an event next week and I made my app for this event. Prime example, the application that I did for NOLA Motorsports. They cut us the check to do that application 3 weeks before the race started. I want to say it was
Oh,
either
wow.
three. Yeah, because they waited all the way to the end to say, hey, this is what we wanted to
Pay
do.
vendors.
Yeah, they waited all the way to the end. So we had 3 weeks to get an application. Well, really like two and some change.
Because you have to submit it for
Because we
review.
had to submit it. So we were working with time with a time crunch, and at that time the review process I think was a week and a half. And so we had to submit for expedited review, I think over like 7 to 8 times, right? And it
Wow.
was a very difficult process just to get the application into the store at a certain time. Now, this was back in 2014, 2015. So about 5, 6 years later, the app review process has gotten a lot better, but there's still some areas of opportunity there for developers getting their applications out on time, as well as the guidelines. There's been a lot of ambiguity, a lot of gray area, unclear statements about how the App Store guidelines work. Another example, there was a music producer, an artist that I was working with in New Orleans, who wanted to build this game, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. And he wanted to build this game using the marijuana icon or the marijuana logo image, right? And so we put that in the game as collectible little icons. And when you collected them, you jumped over a car, you collected this piece, and you got points, right? It was like an endless runner game. And you collected the weed image, and every time you got one, you jumped over a car, you got a point. And the game got faster, so the more weed icons you picked up in that time frame, the further you progressed, but it got faster, blah, 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 right? They denied that application over 6 times. And the reason why they denied it was because I can't remember the actual terminology they used, but it was basically you can't have marijuana.
Weed paraphernalia.
Yeah, in the App Store. We were like, what? We went to the App Store. There's literally an app called Weed Farm
With the weed.
that
The weed
walks
leaf
you
on it.
through how to grow weed. And I'm like, what? How is this application allowed in the App Store, but our application isn't?
Is it because
And
it was a game? So they assumed it was geared towards children?
they said that it was a game, and they also said because I can't give the name right now, and I don't really want to give the full concept, but they said that there was some police or law enforcement aspects to the game, so that mixed with marijuana just wasn't the right image or perspective that they thought the
Okay.
game should take. That didn't make any sense to me, and they weren't able to articulate why they removed our or didn't
Approve
approve our application. They just kept referring us to the guidelines, and the guidelines weren't very clear because obviously they let an application called Weed Farm into the App Store. So the guidelines around submitting applications, both from Apple and Google, have been very unclear. And the removal of applications just off of the whim of Apple has been challenged a lot over the years. Has been challenged a lot over the years.
Do you
'Cause-
think a third-party review board would help? Like, kind of like what Facebook... Well, I guess it's not really an external review board because that's Facebook's people still doing it.
No. External review board, I don't think would be the solution. The solution would be for Apple to work harder to make their guidelines clearer to developers.
You heard Joshua. The
Yeah,
man said make your guidelines clear.
make them clearer, right? Fully,
Go
if they have to
off.
be, if it has to be longer than what it is, that's just what it has to be. It's our responsibility as developers to read that information, but it's up to Apple to make it clear enough for us to digest so that when we're making applications, we're putting our time
You know what
and
you're...
effort and passion
doing,
into
yeah.
these applications, and we submit them, and then you just reject them without any real basis other than referring to the guidelines, and the guidelines are unclear within themselves. It makes for a poor experience.
Correct. Yeah,
Right?
it's not a good user experience at all.
So before we move on, I just want to read a little bit about what South Korea's government is doing as far as enacting a law around this. Now,
Okay.
the reason why this is setting a precedent is because this is the first sovereign country, to go against Apple and Google in reference to how they are curating their app stores. There have been private companies like Epic and Google who have, Epic and Spotify who
yeah.
have gone against Apple and Google as far as their
Making complaints about antitrust
yes.
to these federal trade commissions and, and those the like.
Yes. And so now we get to South Korea being the first sovereign nation coming out and saying, hey, we're going to set laws. And those laws, you can't trump those because we are the government of these citizens.
You think
And
that's
so-
the first domino? And a lot of other countries are going to use that as a framework for
So,
their own laws around this?
yes and no. So, yes, in that the whole world is watching. The whole world is watching right now to see how this is going to pan out. I say no because I guess I would just speak for America, that I find it very difficult for a court to say that Apple doesn't provide any value to its app stores. All right. And I'm going to get to a statement that the judge over the Apple versus Epic trial made about the App Store and how they view it from a legal standpoint. And I'll get to that soon. But let me get back to this comment about, the statement about the law that South Korea is putting out.
Okay.
The law amends South Korean's Telecommunication Business Act to prevent large app market operators from requiring the use of their in-app purchasing systems. It also bans operators from unreasonably delaying the approval of apps or deleting them from the marketplace. Provisions met to head off retaliation against app makers. All right. So the things to pull out from here is that they are requiring the market operators. So at this time, the market operators are Apple and Google. They are requiring the use, or they're saying that they cannot require the use of only their in-app purchasing system. And they're also banning the unreasonable delay of the approval of the application or the deletion of that application.
So like what Apple did to Epic, just pulling it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're saying you just can't pull this out the App Store because it
You don't like what they did?
exactly is bringing more of the power into the government structure as opposed to the private company. Okay. Another law or guideline. Well, let me talk about the guideline in comparison to the law that South Korea just put out, right? So the guideline that Apple is referring to when it comes to in-app purchases is a part of Section 3. It's 3.1.1 under in-app purchases. You can look this up yourself. You can look up Apple app review guidelines, and it'll come up with a PDF right there, so you can see all this for yourself. But I want to read you that guideline for in-app purchases. The guideline says, if you want to unlock features or functionality within your app by way of example, subscriptions, in-game currencies, game levels, access to premium content, or unlocking a full version, you must use in-app purchase. Apps may not use their own mechanisms to unlock content or functionality, such as license keys, augmented reality markers, QR codes, etc. Apps in their metadata may not include buttons, external links, or other calls to action that direct customers to purchasing mechanisms other than in-app purchases. All right? So in summary, if you want to buy something through an app in the App Store, you got to use in-app purchase. And if you do it through any other way, it voids our guidelines, and we're going to remove your application from the App Store.
Post haste.
And that's what happened to Epic. Okay?
They went to sleep and woke up the next morning and
it
the
was
app
gone.
was gone.
It was gone. Right? And so Apple, as the curator, as the publisher of the application, they reserve
that right.
They reserve the right to do that. And so speaking of rights, as a developer, you have to sign a lot of contracts.
Apple don't make sure they
they continuously update these contracts, and they don't allow you to continue the sale of your application unless you agree to the new contracts that they come out with. Okay.
Is that like embedded with your app developer membership? Like
You'll
I choose to renew my membership, I agree to these terms.
And during the membership during that year, you'll get notifications. Hey, you need to sign the new tax and sales agreement. You need to sign the new compliance agreement. You need to update your banking info. There's a lot of documentation that needs to be upkept, and a lot of licensing and contracts that need to be upkept in order to make these policies stand firm. All right. And so I was doing some research, and I called up a lawyer friend of mine, and had a conversation with him about what's going on right now. I was just picking his brain, and the conversation from his perspective is really around the right versus the means, or
what do you mean by that?
who has the rights and means to receive this commission. All right. So what I mean by that, Apple has, if you go look at the contracts that you sign as a developer, Apple has the right, all right, or before I get to right, Apple has the means to receive this commission. The receival of this commission, the means of that is through the in-app purchase. That's the means of which they receive that commission. The right comes from you signing the contract saying that you agree to these terms and conditions of being a app developer, and you agree to Apple taking 30% of any transaction before it reaches your bank account. So the number that I get into my bank account already has the 30% commission removed. I don't even see that. I don't even see that money. Apple takes it before it even hits my account. They handle all of the books for that, all the accounting. They handle all of that. I don't have to deal with any of that. Okay? Apple has the right, and they have the means to collect that commission. What is being really challenged from South Korea is the means by which the commission is being taken. From the law perspective, Apple has the right to receive that commission as it stands, right? As it stands, Apple has the right to receive that commission. And in the fine print, Apple has the right to receive that commission no matter where it comes from. No matter where it comes from. Whether it comes from the in-app purchase, or if you decide to use a third-party link, send your customer to your website, and you process that payment for that digital good that is then used back in the app that is in the App Store, Apple has still right to that 30%. Now, they don't have the means to collect that 30% because now you are doing that processing of that payment on your own server, on your own website. But in the contract, Apple still has the rights to that money. So now as a developer, if you decide to start utilizing third-party platforms for payment processing, you have to start doing your books. You have to start accounting for all of these purchases that are happening outside of the application. And in the event that Apple says, you know what, hey, we want to audit you as a small developer, as a multi-million-dollar corporation. We want to audit you. We want to make sure that the purchases of digital goods that are being used in our app store, and we're making sure that we're getting our 30% because that's what you agreed to. Now, you may not want to facilitate it through the in-app purchase, which is okay, because they have made provisions for that in a new class action lawsuit, which we'll get to here in just a moment. But if we allow you to do that, you still have to pay us our 30%. So you're not really circumventing the system. You're just not using the in-app purchase.
Taking on an additional expense to facilitate a third-party payment. So
now, yes, you may be able to tell your customers, okay, yeah, don't go through the in-app purchase. It's going to be $20 over here. It's $10 over here. You still got to pay Apple that 30% on that $10. You still got to pay them.
That's crazy.
And if you don't, and they audit you, you are responsible for the audit. I don't know. I can't remember. I think there's like a 5% margin of error or something like that. But if they find that you are at fault, or if they find discrepancies that are above a certain amount, they will make you pay for the audit. And everybody knows how expensive lawyers can be, and especially the lawyers that Apple will choose in order to audit you, right? So it becomes, what are you really trying to do? Why are you really trying to circumvent the in-app purchase? What's the reason behind it? What's the reason behind it? Is it you're trying to decrease the cost for your customers?
I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from, decreasing costs.
Decreasing costs for customers. So if we decrease costs...
Not so much for customers as decreasing expenses for the business.
What do you mean? So,
if I'm selling my app in the App Store for $10, $9.99, and Apple gets $3 out of my $10, I go to a third-party payment processing, and let's say I charge $8 as opposed to my $10. I'm not giving Apple $3, and I get to keep an extra $1 because I'm getting, instead of getting $7, I'm getting $8.
But you still got to pay me that 30%. You're not running from the 30%.
I feel like if the argument is Apple is acting as a monopoly by charging that 30%, they're gonna argue that they're not giving Apple no 30% or nothing. I feel like they're gonna try to dissolve that contract.
Well, then you can't come to the App Store. It's Apple created the App Store. Just like Google created their App Store, Target created their company and their stores, Walmart created theirs, right? They are the creators of the space, and they set...
It's like building a mall and charging rent to the stores.
Yeah. Now, okay, that's Great example.
Yeah, because it's placement.
There are building owners here in St. Thomas, down here in Main Street, that are charging $3, $4, $5,000 a month for rent. Now, is that crazy? Yes. But is it well within their right to do so? Yes. They're the owner of the building. They can charge whatever the hell they want to charge. They're the owner of the building. And if I decide to be a tenant in that building, right?
Sign a lease.
And sign a lease for
After 10 years, I get mad and say, nah, the rent got to go down.
Now, if you're mad with the price, let's have a conversation around that. Let's have a conversation around the price. Let's see what we can do to decrease the price.
The splits.
But the price ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Because the landlord has to make his money off of his tenants so that he can pay the mortgage for the building.
And upkeep, maintenance.
Right?
And
so
security in some cases.
Come on now.
Yeah.
So if the App Store is doing the same thing for your digital goods, do you not think that Apple shouldn't get paid? Yes, they're a $1 trillion business, going to be probably the most wealthy company on the face of the earth. Yes.
Wealthier than most nations.
But that doesn't mean that they're still not owed what they're due.
They're not just taking the money without giving value for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I'm hearing.
And, this is a bad, I guess, I don't want to say bad taste or bad perspective, but like a lot of people that I talk to, if you're talking about wealthy people, it's like, well, they got it. They can,
they
whatever.
Can pay it. Yeah.
You don't know them wealthy people bills? Yeah, I got $1 million. Buy
a new couch.
But
Charlie, my man.
If I have $1 million, but my yearly expenses are $850,000, I'm not really that rich, right? You don't know what these expenses are. You don't know the expenses that it takes for Apple to house over, I think it's over like 4 million apps now, right? You don't know those expenses. Right, and
server space,
there's a lot of things that have to be paid for in order for your application to work the way that it does, and for it to be available 24/7 to anybody whoever wants to buy it in any country, no matter the bandwidth, no matter what country. Like, there's so many layers that Apple adds value to that if you're not paying attention, you just shrug off to the side.
For granted,
and that take it for that. Taking advantage or taking it for granted leads us to the place that we're in right now. Saying that Apple should just let us do whatever the hell we want to do. Yeah, don't charge us. Don't charge us nothing. Let's put our stuff in there. And so if Apple did that, let's just say that Apple did that. Let's say Apple said, you know what?
Go ahead.
we're gonna wipe out the whole 30%. You gotta pay us nothing. You know what's gonna happen? As a developer, in order for me to be a developer, I'm gonna pay like $2,000 a month.
Oh, that charge gonna come somewhere else.
Apple gotta make the money from somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. Money doesn't grow on trees. You gotta make it from somewhere. So if it's not going to Apple off of a commission after I've made a sale, if it's not coming from that, they're gonna charge me to sale. Which means that $99 is going to turn into $1,000, $2,000, right? The reason why I'm saying those high numbers is because Apple charges $1,600 just to go to their worldwide developer conference.
And you're not even guaranteed. It's like a lottery system to get a chance to buy a ticket.
Yes,
to go.
It's a lottery system to get a
ticket.
But then when you get the ticket, it's $1,600, and that's just a ticket. That's no flight. That's no food. That's no room and board. That's just access into the building for 5 days.
Yeah.
$1,600. I think it's 5,000 is the capacity for that event. They haven't held that event in a couple of years due to the pandemic.
Been digital, yeah.
Yep. So
which I think is great because it offers more access.
Oh, I think it's great. It does provide access. However,
but
I do think
the
networking component is missing. Yeah. They've tried to create digital rooms and things like that. That's
weird.
It's just not the same. So that component of the conference has waned. But getting the content and getting the keynotes and getting access to the
The
software hasn't changed.
resources,
So
yeah.
I'm happy about that. But I I don't agree with Apple's or Google being these multi-billion-dollar companies saying they should just eat these prices for their consumers. That's not how business works. That's not how capitalism works. That's not how it works. And until we change the foundations of capitalism, which I don't see that happening, this is it. The conversation shouldn't be around removing in my opinion, shouldn't be around removing the commission. It should be around how to properly utilize the commission. And I think that Apple has taken a good stance. Back to your point about the Small Developer Assistance Fund. Okay,
Yep.
I'm gonna talk to you about this, and then I'm gonna talk to you about the class action lawsuits. But this is first. So the Small Developer Assistance Fund. So this came out in I don't not from the lawsuits, but it was in response to a lot of the feedback that developers and the general community, were given to Apple about that 30% commission. So they've set up a platform to where if you are a small business, if you make less than $1 million in the calendar year as a developer, you qualify as a small business, and you can submit your company to Apple, and upon approval, they will allow you to decrease that 30% commission to 15%. This started out, I want to say it was either the developer conference that I went to in 2016, or it was the year right after in 2017, that they came out with, if you had subscribers that subscribed to your application for more than a year, then all of those subscription costs would decrease to 15% as opposed to 30%. That was kind of like the initial foundation of this assistance of this assistance program. And so now it's translated into saying, hey, we're now going to allow you to, if you're a small business, you can submit your name or submit your company, and if we believe that your company fits our small business model, we'll decrease your commission from 30% to 15%. And I think that's pretty significant, in my opinion.
That's hot.
Yeah, that's pretty significant, right? Going from 30 to 15%. I think that's worth the effort, because, like I said, I think, don't quote me, but I think there's about 75 to 80% of the developer community that are small businesses.
Would fit in that category.
Right?
Yeah.
So that would affect a large chunk of the developer community and would increase the amount of money that they're able to make per application sale. And that's really what all this is about. Is about the money that the developers are able to make. Now, some of these developers, like I said, are huge multi-million-dollar corporations. So they have more skin in the game or more to lose in these conversations.
They have more to gain by keeping them coins.
Yeah. They have more to gain. They have more to lose. But I, as an independent developer, I'm always speaking for the independent and always more so focused on the independent. And in this perspective, in this construct, I think that the small business developer assistance program is a good
investment.
Is a good investment, but also a good response to all of the criticism and the feedback.
It's a good way to support the developer community.
For sure.
In a way that's going to impact them, because when we talk about supporting small businesses, like, that 15% might be the difference between a little girl being able to go to jazz band practice or ballet practice. Or,
for sure.
You know.
And I think I misspoke. I named that the Small Developers Assistance Fund. Was wrong. That goes into the
App Store Small Business Program?
Yeah, that the Small Developer Assistance Fund goes into the class action lawsuit that I'm about to talk about. What I was just talking about,
like grant packages.
Yeah.
Okay.
The App Store Small Business Program. Let me just read it one more time for clarity. which allows developers who earn less than 1 million in a year to apply for a reduced 15% commission for their sales, in place in its current structure for at least the next 3 years.
Okay.
All right. So that's the App Store Small Business Program. Right. And you can submit your company to that, or your profile to that, as an independent, and they can allow you that 15% if you are approved. And I recommend any small business out there that is developing applications for any of the Apple platforms, I suggest you do so for sure. Secondly, getting into the class action lawsuit. So this is a class action lawsuit that was submitted by two developers. Two independent developers basically came to the courts and said, hey, we believe that Apple is monetizing the distribution services for its iOS apps. And if we find that that is true, we want to establish a lawsuit that not only helps us, but also helps all of the other developers that were affected by these practices. And so I'm going to read you a little bit from the lawsuit, okay? So Apple, the lawsuit states that Apple monopolized U.S. distribution services for iOS apps and in-app digital products, which resulted in commission overcharges to U.S. iOS developers. So if you made less than $1 million per calendar year during the period from June 4th, 2015 to April 26th, 2021, these developers can claim sums from the fund ranging between minimums of $250 all the way up to $30,000. I want to talk about another layer of the lawsuit. So one part of the lawsuit was for financial compensation to allow the developers affected to receive financial compensation for the funds that were lost due to those practices. So you can submit your name for that. But it also wanted to address the inconsistencies with the app review process. And so to speak about that, Apple will permit all US iOS developers to communicate with their customers outside of their apps about purchasing methods other than Apple's in-app purchase system. Apple also will remove the prohibition against US developers using information obtained within their apps to communicate with their customers outside their apps about the use of purchasing methods other than in-app purchases, subject to consumer consent and opt-out safeguards. So basically they're saying, hey, app developers, you can tell your customers that they can purchase digital goods outside of the in-app purchase system. You can do that. Before, Apple said that you couldn't do that. It was against their guidelines, and now they're allowing you to do that, and they're also allowing you to put payment processing outside of the in-app purchase. All right. Now, this lawsuit hasn't been signed yet. It hasn't gone into effect. The lawsuit hasn't gone into effect. So the site isn't up for you to register yet. And these guidelines haven't been put into effect yet, but they're coming. And I think this is also, again, a response to the negative criticism and feedback from the community. And Apple's response is, okay, hey, we'll allow you to do this. We'll allow you to communicate with your customers, and we'll allow you to tell them that you can purchase digital goods outside the in-app purchasing system. However, remember that we said that if you decide to do that, you have to be more focused on your accounting. You got to make sure that you are keeping very, very copious books, so that in the event that Apple comes and wants to look at those books, that they read up. Because if they don't, you're going to have to pay Apple whatever the difference is, and you're going to have to pay Apple for the audit. Most developers don't have the money to pay for those sorts of things. Most. All right? So while Apple is giving you the ability to do so, I would stress, weigh the options. Weigh the risks. What benefit am I getting by allowing my customers to purchase digital goods outside of Apple's in-app purchasing system? And what do I gain for keeping it in-house and allowing my customers to go through the in-app purchasing system? And if it works for you, great. But in my opinion, I think the developers that it works for, that those are the outliers. I don't see this becoming general practice. I don't see this becoming the precedent, the industry standard, because I don't think that most developers have the infrastructure to perform a third-party transaction on another website. I think this is more so reserved for the bigger app development companies, the conglomerates that have these large firms, that have these large dev teams, that are able to take on this type of responsibility, right? You utilizing a third-party system for payment processing, you are taking on the responsibility of that transactional experience. That's your responsibility now, right? And so if you fail in that, that's on you. If you fail in that, that's on you. Which is why, like I said,
across different currencies, across the world, different global economies.
So, like I said, I don't think that this is going to be the industry standard. I do think that there are going to be companies that utilize this. Epic was probably going to be one of them. Maybe Spotify, maybe. But we'll see.
Definitely.
We'll see. But there are. This is going to set the stage, right? South Korea coming out as a sovereign nation, going against the two biggest tech companies in the world, and making laws. Like, this is not just conversation. They are making laws that are restricting Apple from their over 10 years of business practices. They are now restricting those business practices in their country. And so now countries like
the European Union.
Yes, the whole European Union discussion around,
because Spotify came out with, Spotify is based in Sweden.
Yes.
And they filed their complaint with the European Union about antitrust. In the same App Store conversation that we're having in regards to South Korea.
Yes.
There's also there's some stuff going on in Russia as well, around how Apple is regulating. So this isn't specifically the processing of payment through the app so much as it is certain applications that are being used to for parental controls, in the same way that Apple allows parents different tools to restrict access to certain areas of their children's phone, or to restrict screen time, or what have you. There are different companies, third-party companies, that offer similar services, and they've been filing complaints against Apple because Apple's been restricting the feature sets that they can employ through their applications. So that's kind of where the gripe is with what's developing in Russia. Yeah, I think that's kind of the bulk of it as far as the antitrust and the App Store argument goes.
Yeah, that's the bulk, but I guess want to wrap up, in saying that in regards to other countries now looking at South Korea, in my understanding,
the precedent they're setting.
Yeah, the precedent that they're setting and how law works, right? Law is really dependent upon past cases or past instances that have occurred that you can refer to set new standards. And so now that South Korea has come out and have taken this stance from a legal standpoint, it's going to be very interesting to see how other countries follow, because there's already been gripe around Apple in Europe with I forget what specifically. I think it's either with access to the App Store or iPhone regulation, one of the two. But there's conversation and gripe going around about how Apple is selling their products in Europe, and Apple is basically playing chicken with Europe right now with if Europe if they institute these certain laws, Apple is basically saying, hey, we'll stop selling our
iPhone.
Products in your country.
Good luck. You ain't gotta worry about paying us in the App Store if you ain't got no iPhones. Apple petty for that. I feel like what you may be alluding to, in one of our past episodes, we were talking about the patent wars that were happening, with some of the cellular technology that's used in the phones. Yeah.
Apple is its own country. Google and Facebook are their own country.
They have the buying power.
They have the buying power and influence, like some countries. And so when you hear Apple tell Europe, hey, we'll just stop selling. We'll
say something I don't like.
We'll just take our operations and take them out of Europe. We make enough money in other places. Or we'll see who sweats first. You tell us, Europe, okay, cool. You don't abide by our laws, we're gonna fine you. We're gonna fine you. We're gonna fine you $250 million. You don't want to pay it? Okay, cool. Apple says, I know, we're not gonna pay it.
Bet.
And if you don't change your laws, we're gonna leave Europe. We're not gonna sell iPhones or Macs or watches or anything in your country anymore. And so now, who does that hurt? It hurts the citizens.
Hurt their local economy.
It hurts the citizens.
Because all that money is going to be going, all those people are going to travel to other places where they can get those products.
And then the access. So what about the people that can't travel? Or the kids that might need an iPad for school? Or the student in college who might need a Mac? Right? Who might need these things, but they can't get them because Apple is beefing with the country.
That's
right?
wild style.
Right. So that's kind of where we are right now. Apple and Google are going to fight this, but this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. I expect to see other countries put their hat in the game, if not in the same exact fashion, but come out with laws of their own to be able to govern how app stores curate and operate within their country. I'm very interested to see how that is going to turn out, and I'm very interested to see Apple's continued response, because, like I said, the industry standard right now is 30%, and Apple being who they are, they set precedents within themselves. So I'm interested to see how Apple responds to this as these laws continue to develop. And we should be hearing a verdict from the Apple versus Epic trial here pretty soon. And just so you know, in October 2020, when the judge was first talking about the App Store and in-app purchases, she said that she did not look at the App Store like a payment processor, like PayPal or Stripe. They looked at Apple as a curator of the App Store who facilitated payment processing through the App Store of the digital goods that were already in the store. So it's different
and
than
managing app content and user data.
The only thing that PayPal and Stripe do, or these other payment processors, they just facilitate the transaction. They don't really add any other value to the transaction. They're just doing the processing. So that's why their processing fees are 1-2%, because they're doing very, very minimal work in comparison to Apple and Google, who are curating an entire experience, an entire store, and hosting that. They need to be paid for that. Sarah?
No, I don't have anything else to add to that. The next thing I kind of want to just mention, really, because we're over our hour mark, is we have an Apple event coming up next week.
Oh, wait. This is Christmas in the fall. We're in the fall, right? September?
I mean, we're getting close.
Getting close?
Yeah, we're kind of like where summer ends and fall begins.
Christmas in the fall. Christmas in the fall. And so what's coming with this new Apple event?
So as far as software releases are concerned, we're getting the much anticipated iOS 15. And we're also getting the much anticipated macOS Monterey, which is supposed to be the refinement of Big Sur. I hate Big Sur.
I hate Big Sur too.
With a passion. It sucks. But Monterey is supposed to be a lot cleaner, a lot more efficient, and a lot less buggy. As far as device releases, I'm gonna say anticipated device releases, because we know to expect the iPhone 13. That's a given. We should be getting a 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 chip. Fingers crossed.
To the computer gods. Of course, 16-inch Pro.
And then the last thing we're expecting is a new Apple Watch. So I'm expecting a new health feature to be incorporated in there. I'm just not quite sure what we're gonna get. There have been some rumors floating around about, things that are under development in Apple's labs concerning the Apple Watch and what health features they're trying to incorporate in future models. And I'll just kind of spin through them real quick to give an idea for folks what we're looking at, potentially materializing in the Apple Watch. So first would be a thermometer. So this would assist with fertility planning for women, sleep tracking, as well as, detecting if you have a fever. Another feature would be a blood pressure monitor. The issue with that particular feature right now, as it stands in the lab setting, is that when you're measuring your blood pressure, you usually use like a cuff that inflates to help take the measurement. And getting those same metrics without doing that has been the issue with that feature. Next would be detection for sleep apnea. So that specific test would be utilizing the blood oxygen sensor in your watch. The only issue that's kind of holding that one back from being released is that it drains the battery life of the watch really fast. So they haven't quite figured out how to make that happen in a more efficient way. Next feature would be detection of diabetes. And the challenge with that feature would be a non-invasive method of glucose monitoring. Because usually, people prick their fingers and then they test the blood. Let's see. So yeah, all of these features are currently under study and development at Apple, and they could be delayed because of these challenges. They could be canceled because of these challenges, but these are things that Apple is kind of cooking up for us. So hopefully we can see some of these things materialize.
Yeah, and some of it also might be delayed due to the chip shortage.
Also.
Yeah, there's
also a fact.
Speaking about the 16-inch MacBook Pros that I've been waiting for so long. It's rumored that the chip shortage is going to affect the product line so that the devices may be talked about, but that there might be a later release for them.
Yeah.
Now, I also know that Apple has first pick at all of the new chips that are coming out of TSMC.
Of course they do.
Yeah. They have first pick.
They should own stock in TSMC at this point.
Pretty sure they do. So I'm interested to see how that rollout's going to happen. But do know that the chip shortage is still occurring, and that you'll see this affect all areas of industry, all the ones that utilize circuitry or computers, and most of our appliances and products now. Now have some integrated circuitry in them. So if you're looking to buy a new car, buy a new computer, it might be a little difficult in this next couple months. But we have our event next Tuesday. I will be doing a live kind of feed on our Instagram and Facebook of all the new products that are coming out, and then I'll do a recap video of the event as well for those that aren't able to
watch.
Tune in if you're at work. If you can't catch it, I will just do a quick recap video, post it on IG, also post it on our YouTube page for you to view. I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. I want to say thank you to all. Well, first, thank you guys for listening. One, thank you guys for tuning in. Two, I definitely want to thank all of our viewers of our first commercial. I think that we're almost at 100,000 views.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and that's really cool. Right, that's really cool. I've never had a video at 100,000 before, let over 10,000. Right. So to have
Let
our first,
alone over 5.
right? So to have a video out
It's
there
been dope.
in 2021 that has that many views,
I'm getting good feedback as
along
well.
with the great feedback that we're getting from the community, along with all of the new customers that we've gotten from that commercial, has been really, really cool. And the commercial has reached a lot of kids. I see a lot of kids in the street that now know me by my face and like want to say hi to me in the street, or they bring their parents in and say, "Hey, I saw this guy on TV. He fixes phones. Let's
He
bring
can
our
help
stuff to
you.
him."
Yeah.
And they come in here with their parents, and now I'm making new relationships with customers. So YouTube has been really, really beneficial for us, and we're going to be working on some more commercials to be
And some more content.
yeah. So not still advertising, but some more entertainment, some more cool, a little bit more of a cool factor. So we got some things in the pipeline. We're also open for suggestions, so definitely reach out to us. You can always reach out to us. What's the email address again, Sarah?
The Genius Pod the Genius Podcast at gmail.com.
Boom, there it is. And then also repairs at joshuathegenius.com. You can reach us there as well if you have inquiries about repairs or inquiries about the store in general. And so for our local listeners, we are here off of Main Street. Joshua the Genius is located right off of Rodet's Gata, which is right across from Stonehouse Cafe, right above Valentine's Jewelry Box, and right next door to Chico Jewelry Repair. We're open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, and Saturday and Sunday we're here in the shop from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. You can give us a call at 340-227-3821, or send us an email, repairs@joshuathegenius.com, and you can reach out to us there. Also, speaking about cryptocurrency, right now it looks like we're getting back into a little bit of a bullish market. We definitely see some increases in cryptocurrencies overall.
You
So
see,
I want
El
to let you.
Salvador made
Yes.
crypto their
I
first
think
sovereign nation to make crypto their main currency.
yes, and I think
Like, you
they
could-
purchased either 200 or 250 bitcoins to put into circulation.
in their country.
Yeah, it was like 2 or 250.
I think that's interesting.
And each coin right now is somewhere between 48,000 and 52,000. It's fluctuating between those two right now. So here at the shop, we are accepting cryptocurrency as forms of payment. We accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ripple, Dogecoin, and Ethereum. Those are the 5 cryptocurrencies that we're accepting here in the store. And we also provide a public domain that you can send us that cryptocurrency through. And it's powered by Unstoppable Domains. Unstoppable Domains is a platform that basically translates your public address for receiving cryptocurrency into a readable domain. So instead of having this long string of alphanumeric letters, you have something readable, something like joshuathegenius.crypto, that you can send these cryptocurrencies to, and it's a lot easier for you to put
On
that
the
into your
user
phone.
side,
You have to remember all these long letters and
Random,
numbers and
yeah.
randomness, right? It makes it very, very easy, kind of like going to a website. You don't have to remember the 192.168. all these other numbers. You just put in espn.com and you get to that website, right? So
Same concept.
similar concept. And so that's through Unstoppable Domains. If you are interested in setting up your own domain, if you don't know how to do it yourself, we'd be more than happy to help you, personally or professionally. So definitely reach out to us here at the store if that's a service that you're looking for. And then also, if you're looking to purchase cryptocurrency, if you're just getting into the game, if you want to increase your knowledge about cryptocurrency or about a particular coin, or if you're ready to start purchasing and start investing into the space, you can do so through a free application named Coinbase. Coinbase is a great application for you to start your cryptocurrency journey. It allows you to see all of the cryptocurrencies that are available for purchase. It allows you to learn about them, and then it also stores them in the application in a secure digital wallet for you
Nice.
for safekeeping. Okay, and we're going to put a link down in the description in the show notes, so that if you use that link, you get $10 free of Bitcoin, which is really cool. All right, so we thank you guys for watching. We're going to be continuously giving you guys content. We post our podcast every 2 weeks. So we give you guys 2 in a month. We're going to be coming out with some special podcasts. So those might be in between our regular podcast, or might be in conjunction with our regular podcast. We keep you up to date with that. But other than that, I am good. Sarah, you got anything for the people?
No, I just want to tell everybody thank you for watching. Thank you for giving us your feedback, and we look forward to any suggestions you may have about content that you'd love to learn more about.
For sure. So guys, until next time, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.